Welcome to another mouth-watering daily edition of 9Honey's Quarantine Kitchen. I'm Jane DeGraff and today is all about a classic pumpkin soup because it's the perfect dish to be cooking as the weather cools down, and if you know how to nail a classic pumpkin soup, you are in a world of good company, my friends. So we're just going to dive straight into it because the nice thing about pumpkin soup is you can keep it very, very simple and trick it up at the end with some extra bits and pieces, which I'll show you a bit later on. First up, we've got one onion frying off in our pan here, and it's getting nice and sweetened and translucent. I've fried it in some oil, but I'm going to add a little bit of butter right now, just for some added depth and richness, because butter makes everything better as far as I'm concerned. Now, what I like to do with my pumpkin soup is before I put that actual pumpkin itself in, I actually like to fry off some fennel because it's nice and sweet. And as it cooks down, it adds extra sweetness to the pumpkin soup. And it's a great way of doing it without adding sugar or maple syrup or any of the other things that people sometimes put into their soups. So I'm just going to turn this up a little bit and we're going to cook our fennel down and get some of those beautiful sweetened notes out of it. And while it's cooking, I'm going to add a little bit of garlic. I say a little bit in my house, it's always quite a lot of garlic. So we'll cook that down. While this is cooking, I should mention, when I chopped up my fennel bulb, I kept the stalks. And the reason for that is I'm going to use these lovely green fronds as dressing right at the end. They add a lovely note of sort of licorice to the final part of the dish, but they also look incredibly pretty and they shouldn't be wasted. They are delicious. So hold on to those and pop them to one side. All right, cooking this bad boy down. Okay, that's cooking down beautifully. What I'm going to add now is a little splash of balsamic vinegar. Now you don't have to do this, but I have another trick coming up later on, and the flavour of the balsamic in the soup now will work perfectly with what we're doing down the track. So a little splash here. Oh, that vinegar hitting the pan is so good. All right, and now we're going to toss in our pumpkin. In we go. Now that is one half butternut pumpkin all diced up, and I've diced it nice and small so that the pieces of pumpkin cook relatively quickly. Now we're just going to let that cook down a little bit before it's time to add our stock. And a word on stock at this point is the better your stock, the better your final soup will be. Now whether that's a stock that you've pre-made and you've got in the freezer or one that you have on hand in the pantry, make sure it's a good one because it will make all the difference in that final bowl of delicious soup. Oh, that's starting to smell really good. And what we're watching for is when you start getting little caramelized bits on the bottom of the pan. We don't need too much of this, but once it starts to go, that's a good time to pour your stock in because it means all the sugars are coming out of your veggies. All right, so now I'm going to turn the heat down and add my stock. Oh, listen to the hiss. Now what we want to do is bring that up to the simmer, and then we're just going to leave it for about 10 minutes or until the pumpkin is starting to get lovely and soft, and then we'll be ready for our next bit. In the meantime, I'm going to show you this amazing trick. What we're going to do is we're going to put some bacon into the oven and just dry it out a little bit and crisp it up. And then what we're going to do is add a fantastic brown sugar and balsamic glaze to it. So I've just got some brown sugar there and some balsamic vinegar. This is going to make an incredibly sticky, sweet glaze. And once the bacon has been in the oven for about 10-15 minutes and has started to get crispy, I'm going to paint that onto the bacon. But first up, let's get this in the oven. Okay, so that's the first part of our bacon done. It's been in for 15 minutes in the oven and you can see it's starting to dry out and crisp up. And what I'm going to do now is turn it over, paint that beautiful balsamic brown sugar glaze onto it, which goes so well with the balsamic hint in our soup. Then I'm going to pop it back in the oven for another 5 minutes and it's going to turn into candied bacon, which is a wonderful joy, trust me. All right, so look at our beautiful glaze, look at that. Thick and sticky. Oh, yeah. Now the sugar in that is going to caramelize beautifully in the oven, and if you do it right, you can just about break your teeth on it in a good way. back in the oven for another 5 minutes at about 200 degrees. We want it nice and hot to caramelize it all up. And by then, our soup should be ready. While our bacon's doing the last of its crisping, now is a good time to blend up our beautiful pumpkin soup. So I just like to do this with the stick blender straight in the pot. Obviously be careful because it's hot. But if you need to, you can pour it into a blender as well. Talk about perfect timing. The timer's just gone off on our bacon. Look at that. And our soup is all blended up. If you could only smell this. Oh, it's incredible. It's buttery, it's sweet, it's pumpkin-y, it's incredible. So now all that's left to do is serve this beautiful winter soup up. The blending makes it all velvety and beautiful, which I absolutely love. You don't have to blend it as much as I did. If you like some chunky bits left in yours, that is entirely up to you. But if this isn't winter comfort in a bowl, nothing is. Look at that. Look at that colour. Now for the fun finishing touches. Okay. First up, I'm going to do a classic dot of sour cream in the middle of each one. Now you can use yogurt or anything else that you prefer, but sour cream is classic and delicious. Adds that beautiful tangy note. Put that in the middle. And then this is our beautiful candied sticky bacon. As that cools, it will go incredibly crispy and beautiful, but right now it's just sticky and sweet and incredible. So we'll just pop a piece on there. For our final finishing detail, the fennel fronds that I said to hold on to before, these make our perfect final finish. And that little hint of licorice that comes from the fresh fennel fronds is an absolutely perfect finishing touch. Crack of black pepper. Oh yeah. If you know how to make a basic pumpkin soup and you've got some great ideas for tittying it up at the end, you are in for a winter of treats. Look at that. Absolutely stunning and beautiful. And now the only thing left is for me to have a taste. It's sweet. It's incredibly deep and rich. Now, I don't want to grab one of those pieces of bacon. What I want to do is show you this. This is what happens when you let it cool down. But that is what is on top of our soup. Thank you so much for joining me for 9Honey's Quarantine Kitchen. I will see you next time, and please enjoy a beautiful winter soup.